Hey, good evening, boys and girls, third grade. Glad to see you. I am recording this kind of late at night. I'm going to tell you something. I'm a little bit sad because I found out earlier today that we won't be coming back to school for the rest of the school year. And when I see you again, you're going to be fourth graders. But you know, I got to thinking about our situation, and we're going to be just fine. And I know that we can all handle it if we work together, and I know that we will. I got to thinking about the one and only Ivan, and I got to thinking about the main character, Ivan, and think about all the things that he overcame. He lived in that mall, at the Big Top Mall, for 27 years, all alone in his domain. But you know what? He stuck it out, and he ended his life at the zoo in Atlanta, didn't he? I hope you found out some good, cool facts and told your parents about that last time. Well, if you remember, Ruby had gone through quite a bit herself. Ruby, the new little elephant, told us when we read last that humans had killed her family. But then she told us that there were good humans and there were bad humans. And you know, we find that out in times like this, don't we? Well, we're going to go on with the story of Ivan tonight. And this part is called A Hit. And look, you can see Ruby right here. Ruby is going to be performing at the circus. And it sounds like maybe they're going to like her if she's a hit. Let's read and see. Stella's foot hurts too much for her to do any hard tricks for the 2 o'clock show. Instead, Mac pulls her, limping, into the ring where she tracks a circle in the sawdust. Ruby clings to her like a shadow. Ruby's eyes go wide when Snickers jumps on Stella's back, then leaps onto her head. At the 4 o'clock show, Stella can only get as far as the entrance to the ring. Ruby refuses to leave her side. At the 7 o'clock show, Stella stays in her domain. When Mac comes for Ruby, Stella whispers something in her ear. Ruby looks at her pleadingly, but after a moment, she follows Mac into the ring. You know, she's looking at Stella like, aren't you going to go too, Stella? But finally she goes with Mac. Ruby stands alone. The bright lights make her blink. She flaps her ears. She makes her tiny trumpet sound. The humans stop eating their popcorn. They coo. They clap. Ruby is a hit. I don't know whether to be happy or sad. I think Ivan is kind of realizing that maybe if everybody loves her, they might keep her there, and this mall might go on for a very long time. But he's happy for her because he wants people to like her. So let's read another part. This part's called Worry. I know that we worry sometimes, and here lately we have been worrying, haven't we, guys? Well, let's read this and find out what happens. When Julia arrives after the show, she brings 3 thick books, 1 pencil, and something she calls magic markers. Here, Ivan, she says, and she slides 2 magic markers and a piece of paper into my domain. So magic markers, guys, are just regular markers that teachers use, that you use in your classroom. I like the sundown colors, red and purple, but I don't feel like coloring. I'm worried about Stella. All evening she's been quiet, and she hasn't eaten a bit of her dinner. Julia follows my gaze. Where is Stella anyway? She asks as she goes to Stella's gate. Ruby extends her trunk, and Julia pats it. Hi, baby, she says. Is Stella all right? Stella is lying in a pile of dirty hay. Her breath is ragged. Dad, Julia calls. "Could you come here a minute?" George sets aside his mop. "Do you think she's okay, Dad?" Julia asks. "Look at the way she's breathing. Can we call Mac? I think there's something really wrong." "He must know about her." George rubs his chin. "He always knows. But a vet costs money, Jules." "Please." Julia's eyes are wet. "Call him, Dad." George gazes at Stella. He puts his hands on his hips and sighs. He calls Mac. I can't hear all of his words, but I can see George's lips tighten into a grim line. Gorilla expressions and human expressions are a lot alike. Mac says the vet's coming in the morning if Stella's not any better, he tells Julia. He says he's not going to let her die on him, not after all the money he's put into her. Remember Mac, he's just kind of worried about money, isn't he? George strokes Julia's hair. "She'll be all right. She's a tough old girl." Julia sits by Stella's domain until it's time to go home. She doesn't do her homework. She doesn't even draw. So Julia is very worried about Stella, isn't she? Well, I don't know about y'all, but I can't stop there today. I've got to read this next part. Let's find out a little bit more. It's called The Promise. My domain gleams with moonlight when I awake to the sound of Stella's calls. "Ivan," Stella says. "Ivan." Oh no, it's kind of sounding like a hoarse whisper, kind of like, "Ivan." "I'm here, Stella." I sit up abruptly, and Bob topples off my stomach. I run to a window. I can see Ruby next to Stella, sleeping soundly. "Ivan, I want you to promise me something," Stella says. "Anything," I say. I've never asked for a promise before, because promises are forever, and forever is an unusually long time, especially when you're in a cage. "Domain," I correct her. "Domain," she agrees. I straighten to my full height. "I promise, Stella." "But you haven't even heard what I'm asking yet," she says. She closes her eyes for a moment. Her great chest shudders. "I promise anyway." Stella doesn't say anything for a long time. "Never mind," she finally says. "I don't know what I was thinking. I think the pain is making me addled." That means kind of confused and not really sure of what she's saying. So Stella's in quite a bit of pain. Ruby stirs. Her trunk moves, as if she's reaching for something that isn't there. When I say the words, they surprise me. "You want me to take care of Ruby?" Stella nods, a small gesture that makes her wince. "If she could have a life that's different from mine. She needs a safe place, Ivan. Not here," I say. It would be easier to promise to stop eating, to stop breathing, to stop being a gorilla. "I promise, Stella," I say. "I promise it on my word as a silverback." So guys, we are going to stop right there, but it sounds like Stella is not in good shape, and she is wanting Ivan to take care of her little niece, Ruby. So Right now, things are not sounding too good, but I hope that when we come back and read next time, we'll find out exactly what happens and how they handle the situation. Now, I know that you guys are all working hard at home. I want you to continue to do that. We're going to read the rest of Ivan and get some things done. Now, I also put on the web page today, and I'm also putting it on Class Dojo, another little fun activity for you to add to your library choice board. There's something called a book scavenger hunt. So you can just take a book and find some fun things that I have listed there for you to find. But any of those things would be a fun activity to complete with your book. Keep thinking about Ivan and keep thinking about Stella. All right, see you next time. Enjoy.